Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 Mazda CX-5, we're going to be showing you how to install the etrailer.com trailer hitch receiver. Before we get into that though, let's just take a minute, we'll check this one out and make sure it'll be the right setup for you. So for those of you that are wanting to pull a trailer around or use a bike rack or a cargo carrier, some other accessory, whatever the case may be, having this hitch back here is going to allow you to get that job done. Compared to some of the other trailer hitches available, in all honesty, this one's probably my favorite, really for one big reason, and that is the way it's going to look on the back of the CX-5. For the most part, it's going to be completely hidden. You know, really, you're just going to be able to see the receiver tube opening here, and it's going to have a matte black carbide finish, which seems to hold up a little bit better over some of the other finishes, but I think it matches the plastic on our bumper almost spot on. So to me, it really looks like a factory type option. And that's not to take away from the other hitches though, because they look good as well. You know, for the most part, those will be hidden just like this one here. But the finishes are a little bit different. You know, there's a Curt that has a full gloss and then a draw tight that is more of a semi-gloss. So honestly, whichever one you think looks the best, you really can't go wrong with any of them. I want to mention too that draw tight hitch is going to have just a little bit higher weight capacities. So if that's something that's really important to you, that might be a better solution for you. It's just going to have a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is extremely common size. So a lot of different things are going to work with it. It is going to use that standard 5/8 pin and clip. One doesn't come with the hitch. If you need one, not a huge deal. You get it here at eTrailer. A lot of times too, if you end up buying a new accessory, they'll come with one. There's something to look out for there. And the safety chain openings. They're a loop style, easy to get to, and big enough to allow us to use pretty much any size hook that your trailer might have on it. When it comes to the weight capacities, the hitch will have a 600-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating, which will be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. That's pretty good. So just about any size bike rack or cargo carrier will work. Just give you an example there. For the maximum gross trailer weight rating, that's going to be 4,000 pounds, or the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. That is the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have in or on it. With all that in mind, I do always like to recommend, never a bad idea just to grab your Mazda's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that your CX-5 can handle that amount of weight safely. We'll grab a couple measurements, and these will help us figure out what type of accessories will work best. If you go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 13.5 inches. For those of you planning on pulling a trailer, I'd probably get a ball mount that has a rise in the shank. That 2 to 4 inch range would work well for most people. And if it were me and I was going to buy a new accessory, I'd probably get one that also has a rise just to buy you a little more ground clearance back here. But let's say if you already have a bike rack or something that has a straight shank, that'll work out just fine. If you go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 4 inches, which is pretty good. So you shouldn't really run into too many issues here, but if need be, you can use that to help figure out exactly if any of those folding type accessories that you might have can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Mazda. Aside from that, you know, not really a whole lot to it. Like I said before, this is my favorite hitch for the CX-5. I think it blends in, it's really versatile, so you can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, I'll say it's not really too complicated by any means, but at some points during it, it can be kind of a pain, you know, just not a ton of room to work under here, but thankfully it's something you do one time and you're done with it, right? And I'll show you a couple of things that I learned along the way from doing these that will hopefully speed that process up for you and make it a little bit easier when you're at home doing something like this. With all that in mind though, if you don't have the time or place to mess with this, I definitely understand. You can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can set something like this up for you. But if you're going to give it a go, hang around, we'll go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Mazda. And here in the middle, we're going to have this little plastic trim piece that we can remove. So on each side of it, there's just a plastic push pin fastener. You can take a screwdriver, pry the head of it down, and pull the base down. And then in these little openings too, there's a little plastic tab that you just kind of push up on to release. We'll lower this down, get out of the way, and then something that I like to do too, since we're right here, there's another push pin on each side that I like to pull out. And what that's going to do is just give us a little more working room with our fascia. You know, you'll be able to kind of pull back on it a little easier, and just gives us more space when we do actually go to put the hitch up. Since we will need to lower the exhaust down some to give us more room, what I like to do before that is just take a strap. I'll just run it from side to side. That way the exhaust will have a little support, and we can kind of control how fast and how far we let it come down. To let the exhaust come down, we're going to have a total of 4 rubber isolator hangers, just like this one here. We have one there, and one there. And it's going to be set up the exact same way on the other side of the vehicle. And what you want to do, you can spray these down with soapy water or some type of lubricant. Just take a pry bar, big trim or a big screwdriver, whatever you got. I'm just going to work one end of that hanger off. I already got the ones on the other side removed like this. So what we can do now, we'll loosen up our strap and let the exhaust come down a little ways. Now, if you look at the side of your frame rail, this is where our hitch is going to bolt up to. And whatever we do to one side of our vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side from this point on, because it's set up the same. You'll have this little wiring harness here. You can take a trim tool or screwdriver and just release that from the frame. And then kind of tucked up way up here in this area, there's going to be a sticker that's covering up one of our attachment points. And if you take a scraper, you can peel that sticker away. That way we can get access to it. Here's a better look at that attachment point now that that sticker's out of the way. And it's just a threaded weld nut. And so what I suggest doing, taking a toothbrush, put penetrating oil in there if you want, and just clean the threads out. Even though it was covered, you know, you can still get a little debris in there. And then the hardware that we're going to use for this attachment point, it'll be the same on both sides. We'll just have a bolt and a conical tooth washer. When you put that conical tooth washer on, you want to make sure that the teeth are on it like this. That way when you thread it in, those teeth will face towards the hitch. So those are going to match up there with those weld nuts in the frame. And just thread into position whenever we're getting ready to put the hitch up. You'll have another attachment point in this area. And a lot of times you'll have this sealer stuff on the side of the frame. So not only do we want to, remove that portion there to get to that other access point, but also all this sealer here, it's piled up pretty thick on our vehicle. That can interfere with getting the hitch up into place. So I'm just going to scrape all that away here on the side. Once you get the side of the frame rail all nice and clean and flat, we can determine what hardware combination we're going to use for that attachment point. So depending on your vehicle, it'll be set up one of two ways. Some of them will be just like the hole towards the front, where there will be a threaded weld nut in there. If that's the case, the kit does give you extra bolts and conical tooth washers, just like the ones we talked about. So if you got a weld nut there, that's what you're going to use. From my experience, the majority of them are set up like the one that we have here today, where it's just an open hole. And if yours is like that, what you can do is take one of the pull wires that they give you. We'll take the coiled end of it, feed it through the hole on the side and down through this larger hole in the bottom of our frame. And then you can put on a spacer block and a carriage bolt. So the carriage bolt will thread on. And then you can feed the hardware up into the frame rail one at a time. You'll pull it through to make sure it, sits flat and everything's smooth. But once you do that, go ahead and just tuck it right back into the frame. That way it doesn't interfere with our hitch when we go to put it up into position. Just a quick pointer too, if you happen to remove the rubber isolator hanger from this hook up here, go ahead and take it off the muffler side and put it back on to this portion. And I say that because once we put our trailer hitch in place, if this rubber hanger is not up here to begin with, it can be really difficult to get it back up in position because the hitch is somewhat blocking it. So by doing this now, it'll definitely make things a little bit easier when you go to rehang the exhaust. The hitch is going to come with 4 of these flat washers, and what I like to do is take one of them and just grab a little bit of packing tape there. That's what I like to use. And these washers are going to line up with each one of the holes in the hitch on the inside portion here. And so I just tape it to the hitch and then cut a little opening out so the bolt can pass through there. And I like to do it this way because it's just a lot more manageable. If you don't want to do this, you'd have to hold the hitch up and try to sneak these washers in place while you're holding it and everything else. So by doing this to all the holes in the hitch, definitely makes things a little easier. If you can grab someone to help you with this part, definitely makes it a lot easier. So the hitch is kind of heavy, but you're going to want to take your pull wire, put it through that hole in the hitch from the inside out. Raise this up into position. And you'll probably have to kind of pull back on your fascia a little bit. And our exhaust here. There we go. Get it all lined up. You want to pull that carriage bolt through. And usually the weight of the hitch will keep that carriage bolt steady. Get that pull wire removed. With this, you want to take a flange nut and get it started hand tight. Once you have all the hardware in place, before we tighten them, what I like to do is take the zip tie that they give you. They give you 2 of them, 1 for each side, and put it in between the hitch and the frame. And the reason they give you this is so you can secure this wire. Since the hitch is covering up that little hole where it originally pushed into. So I just get it roughly in place. And once we have everything snug and tightened down and whatnot, I'll come back, put it exactly where I want it, and tighten it down completely. We'll come back with a 19mm socket and snug the bolts down. I'll kind of move this wire where I want it, and you want to make sure and come back with a torque wrench now and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. We can rehang the exhaust, and what I like to do is start with those hangers first on each side. So I just re-lubricated them. Just line them up by hand, And once once it is supporting itself, come back and remove our strap. Okay, now I went ahead, took this pushpin fasteners, reattached them in the bottom of our fascia. And as far as this little piece goes, I've tried several times on other vehicles in the past to trim this and get it back up into position and everything. And honestly, it's more trouble than what it's worth, if you will. It ends up kind of being loose and not looking that great anyway. So having this removed, I feel like is a better option than trying to modify this and kind of try to make it work, but entirely up to you. Aside from that, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the etrailer.com trailer hitch receiver on our 2024 Mazda CX-5.